Hello out there, and today's video was originally going to be a comparison video of these three Benchmade knives. We have the 527 Mini Presidio, the 556 Mini Griptilian, and the 707 sequel. And to be honest with you guys, I just really struggled with the format and how I wanted to present these three knives, comparing them to one another. So what I decided to do was just sort of wing it and take the format out that I had and start from the end with what my recommendation is, and then I'll work backwards from there. And it might be a bit of a surprise, but if I had to choose between these three knives, which one knife I could keep and carry all the time, it would be this one, the Mini Presidio. All right, and I'm definitely going to talk in detail as to why I prefer this to the other two knives, but this is really the one. All right, and so the categories where I'm going to be talking about this in comparison to the other two knives are the blade steel, the scale materials and ergonomics, and then price, value, collectability, all that type of stuff as well. Okay, but this is my choice, and here's why. So let's start with the blade steel, because the blade shape, steel, and all those aspects. So the blade steel on this is 440C. This is the Mini Presidio Ultra. There is a Presidio version that is in 154cm, but this is the 440C version, and it is definitely a budget steel. But what I can say about the 440C from Benchmade is that one, it is the best 440C that I've ever worked with in my life, and two, I have never carried this knife and thought to myself, gosh, this knife is not performing well. I wish that I had a better steel on this knife. Never, not once. Do I need to touch this knife up regularly? Yeah, pretty regularly I do. But I mean, more regularly than 154cm on these blades? Sure, of course. But is it a big deal? Absolutely not. This knife is perfectly functional with the blade steel that it has, and definitely sufficient. And again, the quality of the 440C here is at a level that I've not seen before in any other knife. So I don't know what the heat treat is from Benchmade or what they're doing, but it's top notch. The 154cm on the other two knives is great as well. I really like that steel. I think 154cm is a steel that sort of gets passed by nowadays with all of the real trendy super steels on the market, and people forget just how good of a using steel 154cm is. So big kudos to Benchmade and the quality of their 154cm. But if you're going to choose between these three knives, not having 154cm and having to go with 440C on the Mini Presidio is in no way a deal breaker. It shouldn't be. And I think the positive things that we're about to get into with the Mini Presidio sort of outweigh the fact that it does not have a higher caliber steel. So, talking about those, we're going to go into weight and ergonomics and handle materials. So the weight of all these three knives is pretty comparable. The Mini Presidio is actually the heaviest, but it's still pretty light at 3.08 ounces. The Mini Griptilian is at 2.78 ounces, and the 707 sequel at 2.57 ounces. This is all according to my scale. All right, so the actual specs might be slightly different, but that's what I have. So all three of these knives are really nice and light. The handle material, though, is different in all three of them, and I really love this one. All right, this is Griptilian material. It's really similar to a lot of the stuff that cold steel uses, and this just has a really nice texture pattern that differs, as you can see, in the middle to the back. So when I'm holding it, the thing that I really like is where my pinky hits the handle is where the texture differs. So I can, if I'm really focused on it, I can know exactly where my pinky is on that handle scale, which is a really neat quality. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but one, it looks cool, and two, for me, it's very, very functional. These edges here that aren't textured do feel a little bit on the plasticky side, but the integrity is there, and they're definitely very strong. The other thing ergonomically that I really like about this knife that you don't get with the other two is just that you can get your full hand, and I have medium to smaller hands, but I can get my full hand on this knife with my thumb in the jimping as intended, and you've got this nice little ramp too that is perfectly comfortable, and you can choke up and you're good over here as well. All right, so the differences between this and the Benchmade Mini Griptilian is, of course, you've got these glass-filled nylon handle scales on the Mini Grip. These have been a talking point and a topic of argument for a long time with people who just really don't like the handle scales. Obviously now I'm going to roll this in, and obviously now we have this to choose from, the new G10 upgrade with the 20 CV steel. Definitely a really good blade. But if you're looking at just like the basic Griptilian, you're still running with these glass-filled nylon scales. And these scales I don't hate as much as a lot of people. I don't particularly like them, especially on the full-size Griptilian where they do feel a little more flimsy. But here on the Mini Griptilian, they're really not that bad structurally. In terms of ergonomics, though, they're not great. If you're going to use one of these three knives in a heavy work environment and over a long period of time, this one would bother you because of how sharp some of this texturing can be. And some of these edges with this aggressive jimping just would create hot spots over time. One thing that is nice is how the thumb ramp and the jimping sort of continues on from the handle scale right onto the spine of the blade. Whereas, you don't have that with the Mini Presidio down here. You can see how the ramp sort of takes off, and then you have to have a drop down to the blade, and it's the same way on the 707 here. So the Griptilian has that, but just in general, it's a sharper knife overall. And again, look at where my fingers are. It's not as full in the hand as the Mini Presidio. Moving on to the 707 in terms of ergonomics, this is where the 707 sort of separates itself out of a typical EDC roll and into, for me, a more gentleman's carry EDC, because the handle is so short that you can't get all of your fingers on it. All right, and if you choke up, it is pretty comfortable here, as you can see, but I mean, look how far you have to choke up in order to get, my medium-sized hands on the handle. So, not really a good, full use, heavy kind of EDC knife. Again, more of a gentleman's, and it looks like more of a gentleman's. It's got the really nice aircraft-grade aluminum scales. The G10 insert on this, what I will say about it, is actually really cool. I thought it was a bit of a joke when I first saw this knife, why have a tiny little G10 insert on such a small knife? But it has really good traction and it's comfortable. So I really like these handle materials, but just the size of it, it's just not going to lend itself to a typical everyday carry usage. So again, more of a gentleman's carry for this, and that's what separates that. All right, so moving on, we talked about ergonomics, we talked about the blade. Other things that are similar, I mean, obviously you can just look at these knives and see all the different similarities in terms of the length and the general size of the blade. And that's why I decided to do the video in the first place, because, I mean, these three knives are pretty typically similar. I mean, they're all really nicely milled, if I haven't shown that before. So, well, these two are at least. The Mini Griptilian has these inset liners that we all know about, but the other two are really nicely milled. One thing I need to mention, if you haven't seen this already in this video, is that these blue standoff barrel spacers here are not factory. They are actually aftermarket added on. So if you were to buy this knife, it would come with a black back spacer right here. So just making sure you were aware of that. So at the end of the day, price is really going to decide what knife you might go for. All right, starting at the bottom, the typical Amazon or, Blade HQ or typical salesperson price, I'd say, is $89.25 for a Mini Griptilian. And about that range, 80, I've seen 95 for the Mini Presidio in this 440C steel. And then this one up here goes all the way up to 135, 140, depending on the blade color and the configuration. Now, that said, these two knives down here, you can definitely get a lot cheaper. I got both of these knives at a much cheaper price because, I looked for a long time, and also that the Griptilian has been made, and there's so many of them out there that if you look long enough, you can definitely find a good price for one. Even if it's not, brand new, you can find a nice lightly used one in the $60 to $70 range for sure. And the same goes for this. These were my first two Benchmade knives, and I got them both because I wanted to get Benchmades at an affordable price. And what I will say about the price of these knives is even at $89.25, this could be a very good investment for you. And I say that because I don't know who's watching these videos. I don't know if you're a collector with a 50 knife collection, or you're a collector with a 20 knife collection, or you're just a guy who's looking for a knife, but if you are someone who is buying one of these knives and you have the intention of using it every day, and this is going to be your regular EDC carry knife, then go for this knife or go for this knife. I mean, again, I told you I prefer the Mini Presidio, but go for one of these. Even at $89.25, the investment is great. The investment is a great one for the tool that you're going to get. If you see your knives as tools, that is a great price, because you will have these knives for the rest of your life if you take care of them. So I mean, that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you're just looking for the nicest knife and one that you can collect, or again, one for a suit pocket and a nice gentleman's piece that could be a good conversation piece, this is definitely a good one for that. And there's no problem with that. I mean, obviously I have this one and I love it. And I'm happy that it's part of my collection. But if I were choosing one to use on a regular basis, hey, this is my daily EDC, and I have $90 to spend on a knife, and this is my one knife, then I'd go with this. Absolutely. All right, so that's really the point that I wanted to make today, guys. I mean, there's a lot of really good knives out there, and a lot of them are from Benchmade. All three of these knives are pretty darn good options. If you did not have price as a force that could hold you back from getting the best thing out there. I mean, the one that I rolled out earlier, this Mini Griptilian, the updated one, is superior in every single facet, I think, to every one of these knives down here. Better blade steel, better ergonomics, better handle material, and great value for any kind of use in terms of collectability or just EDC. So again, there's a lot of good options out there from Benchmade, but I really just wanted to make sure you knew how much I love this knife and how it's sort of flown under the radar for a long time. So any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, as always, let me know in the description down below. I appreciate your time and you watching. I have a lot on the way. The giveaway video will be coming, I believe, about 1 week from today, maybe even sooner. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And I will talk with you soon, guys. Thanks a lot and take care.